Kia ora, everyone. Welcome to our last session of the day. We've got two speakers. We've got Stephen talking about making your information security policy useful for about 50 minutes, and then we've got a remote presentation from Jaap Karan Singh about taking a preventative, human-led approach to software security. So I think that's all I need to let you know. Without further ado, here's Stephen Coates from Aura Information Security.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Reasonable number of people, despite the word policy in the title of the talk. I could say a couple of words about me, but it's all in the bio. I work for Aura Information Security. I'm Security Steve, a seasoned information security consultant with many years' experience. First of all, thanks to the sponsors of the event and the hosts of the event, and of course, without them, it wouldn't have been possible. My company's in there somewhere, in the blue, Aura Information Security, powered by Cordia. Here's the question. Your security policy, does it have a value? Does it have a purpose? Why do you have information security policy? Well, it has a practical value. It has a financial value. Because if you have major incident, accident, or outbreak, and you don't have the policy and the processes and the practices, it could all go horribly wrong. Horribly wrong looks like this. Horribly wrong looks like more than $1 million wasted. Maybe those projects were just delayed. Maybe there should have been upgrade and patching projects, but suddenly to do things in a rush. Maybe you shut down your business for a whole week. Maybe it's a critical business dealing with patients and health, and maybe that causes actual physical, real-world problems to individuals. Maybe it's a huge headache. Maybe the lack of a policy means you've got to re-image or at least check thousands of PCs around a huge statewide, region-wide, county-wide empire with nearly 6,000 staff. And maybe you suffer a number of audits all the way up to Audit New Zealand. That's where I came in to New Zealand maybe 10 years ago. That the audit findings said what you need is a policy. Obviously, if you had a policy, everything would be all right. And what you need is some antivirus that works. Not the antivirus that says you've had a virus and it's still there, just letting you know, just keeping you informed. You've still got viruses, but the antivirus that maybe does something about it, maybe deletes it, purges it, rectifies the system by itself. Oh, and by the way, you also could probably do now with an information security manager. Or it could have been a CISO, standing for career is soon over, if it happens again. They said a few other things. They said, get control of USB sticks, get control of administrator accounts, patching and scanning is always nice, logging and monitoring helps. They said loads of other things, but the top three included me, and the top one they thought was a security policy would make it all better. Now, that's what they thought. You'll have a security policy now in your organization. Doesn't matter if it's state, private, charity, startup. You'll have some sort of security policy, even if it's not written down. But if it is written down, the chances are that your auditor's reluctant to touch it with gloves. The style of some of the policies that are still circulating would make your toes curl. Scary thing is that auditors are still willing to acknowledge that you have some approximately in-date nuggets in legacy policy and give you a grudging pass. Oh, it did say here, use of clear text protocol, so yeah, we'll probably tick on that one. Oh, okay, thanks. So those bits of legacy policy will still count for something, but is it really that useful? Is it going to save my district health board shutting for a week? Is it going to save that $1 million project and save them having to fly me in? No, it isn't. And even if you've got policy, it'll probably be policy 1.0 rather than policy 2.0. And I'll come across that, explain that to you in a minute. Policy 1.0 was probably produced on equipment like this for fellow users. It looks like someone blows the dust off if they think they've got an audit or an inspection or an on-site security assessment coming up. And it's in the bottom drawer with the spare keys and the USB sticks. When you read through the policy and it talks about PDAs rather than smartphones, you know there's something up. And the something up is that the only updates have been an annual sign-off and moving the date along, not moving the words along or the risks or the sentiment. And yet, Policy 1.0 still exists in New Zealand. You can recognise it not just from the PDAs, but from the examples of the games you're not supposed to play during working hours, or the fact that you're only supposed to use the telephone at lunchtime, and your use of the internet could stop business critical applications from working. 1978 plus 2021. And there's 1,000,001 excuses for having Policy 1.0 still active in your organisation. And here's my top set. The worst one is, we didn't want to upset him. The boss has just downloaded this off the internet and we've just got to put a square peg in a round hole and make it work. It didn't cost very much, it was free. The boss did it on a Sunday with the kids and now we have to make it work. Or if you're a consultant, and John will experience this shortly, John Zaleo, that people will say, oh yeah, we just need to use up those few days consultancy and we'd like you to patch in an extra piece of policy for us. Which one? Oh, you'll think of something. How about acceptable somethings or bring your own what's-its? Maybe there's a panic on, maybe, number 3, maybe you're being window dressed. What sort of organisation, what sort of price would you pay for an organisation that doesn't have policies, that doesn't have awareness, that doesn't have a culture of a few million less? And number 4, all hands to the pump. Our biggest customer wants to see the security policy, or we can't win this bid or proposal by 5 p.m. tonight unless we come up with a policy that's not embarrassing. Number 5. Yeah, we've collected so many adverse audit findings. We've been farming and grooming the audit findings. We've been collecting them and classifying them. We've never fixed them, but now we're in a position where we've got a cluster of half a dozen that mean that we need to do some work on the policy. Number 6 is the big folder that you use to scare the staff at induction. You clomp it down on the table, a little cloud of dust appears from the ring binder, and they all go, oh, he's got policy. Oh. In fact, it's a blank ream of paper and there's no policy. There's a couple of pages on the intranet which you'll find in week 2. Number 7 I suffered from. Yes. And I've even forgotten how to pronounce the company name now, but yes. Rheinische Westfälische Elektrizitätswerk 18 Gesellschaft came up with a multilingual, multinational, multi-part policy, and they translated it backwards and forwards so many times that no one could see what it originally derived from, or what risks, or what standards. But you had to follow SecPol parts 1, 2, and 3, and part 3 was for the users, God bless them. Number 8, we had some policy, and we had some more, and we had some more, and we had some more. We just kept adding it. So Yeah, that's where your policy 1.0 came from, and I'm very sorry. Until there's a calling to account. Until they suddenly realize your colleagues in the rest of the business and they say, Steve, we got you here for a good reason, and you're not that good reason. And we're supposed to be enthusiastic and customer-facing and lean and learning, and you've given us all this policy nonsense, and it's, well, there's little we need and nothing we can use, nothing we want, and even if we find the ring binder, geez, who's going to interpret it for us? You? So then it's time to move on. A colleague of mine came up with some much better ideas for making policy 1.0 useful, and I could end the talk after this slide. And you'd leave happy and early on a Friday, but I won't. What? If it was KiwiCon, now there'd be flames shooting up from the edge of the stage. But no. And pretty much that's it, that your original 1.0 policy in a bottom drawer it's that much use. Of course, what Nick forgot is that the security policy is confidential and you're not allowed to share it, so you can't do any of those things with it. It has to remain locked in the bottom drawer. Okay, can we just have a quick show of hands? Does anybody have policy 1.0 back in their organization? Hands up if you've got policy 1.0. Jason, put your hand down. Yours is at least 2.5. Anyone else? Anyone else? Oh, a few hands, gosh. Has anyone written policy 1.0 or updated it or changed it? Okay. Well, when you get the handouts later, you'll see that there's a way forward. But the current state is, of course, policy 2.0. And perhaps that originates with the launch of SharePoint version 1.2.3 many years ago. So what's happened is your policy 1.0 has been now broken up into a cluster of Word documents. And maybe it looks like a list, maybe it's a little folder, and maybe it's on SharePoint 365 these days in a cockpit view and it's been glammed up. Maybe corporates have gone through and rebranded your policy. Maybe it looks quite attractive, but it's the same sad words. It started with all the right intentions. The laudable aims of policy 2.0 were behavior, behavior, behavior. Mostly about behavior. Mostly, to be honest, management promises. You write it down and they've got to budget for it. Okay, we'll never be more than a couple of versions behind. Budget. Yeah, the firewall administrators must have been on the official training course, so we need 2 of them. Budget. Travel, subsistence. We ought to have antivirus installed on all of our workstations, and it ought to be the one with the artificial intelligence. Budget. So you write it down, you smuggle it in, and you keep management honest, because they've committed. Annual pen tests. Budget. Maybe it's user behavior, the users. Let's set expectations, let's keep them honest, let's encourage them. It's all about the acceptable use policy and encouraging, promoting good user behavior. We'll give them some examples, we'll give them some do's and don'ts, and we'll try and change, influence their behavior. Maybe it's your technical staff. Good technical staff don't need telling about documentation and policies and processes. Oh, that's fine. But maybe you're protecting them. Protecting the technical staff from the complaint that that person's written a script that's accessed my computer and their name's all over my folder or directory. Well, we asked them to. It's IT, it's housekeeping. We were looking for a thing and we found the thing and we stopped the thing. That person's reading my mail. No, they're the mail administrator and they blocked 5 kinds of spam this morning and 2 kinds of virus on your behalf. Thank you very much. So it's keeping the technical staff safe. Logging, alerting, monitoring. They're not supposed to read your banking details, but they are supposed to block your spam and viruses for you. And then without having your policy, where's your culture of security going to come from? This mythical culture of security, self-reinforcing, good practice, communities of excellence, sharing the top security things. Where's it going to come from without policy? 2.0. So you come up with your budget, come up with your proposals, you say it's going to take, 6 months, 12 months to come up with policy 2.0, and it will be the right size and it will be risk-based. It'll be little fragments and snippets, it'll be short documents, it'll be readable. By readable, I mean that you can find it to read it, and you can search through it to find the bits that you want, and it'll be written in a consistent style and tone. Shoulds, shalls, musts, wills, or is. It'll state what the musts are, the red lines. It'll tell you the penalties. Do this, it could be the end of your career. We have to march you out with a black plastic bag. It could also be current and signed off. Not draft 1.0 from the year dot. Noah was a lad, signed off by some junior supervisor. It could be signed off by the chief exec or the chief operating officer. It might even be actionable. When you get to the disaster recovery procedure in a crisis, and it says the procedure or the policy or the standard, whatever it is, says what you'll be needing is a plan. Good luck. And the plan needs to be tested once a year. Did you do that? And then updated. That procedure, that policy, is worth nothing, because what you needed was a well-rehearsed disaster recovery plan. Step, 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 do this, do that, phone him, phone her, phone them, call them, they're on contract. So is it actionable? Is it technically correct? Well, it was once, but we don't do floppy disks anymore. Who do you call? You've got the policy in your hand, and you're trying to make sense of it, and maybe you're an edge case, but who do you phone for advice and guidance? Who owns the policy? Who can talk to the policy? Who can clarify? Who can tell you if you need to discuss waivers, exemptions, exceptions, concessions, risks to be written up and signed off? Who is your policy person? And then, success criteria. Overall, this policy wouldn't have been successful if we have backups, if we test the backups occasionally, if we don't have any incidents of losing the backups. So it all sounds very positive, very laudable, very praiseworthy. And then you're allowed to flavour it with some business stuff. Drivers, risks and imperatives. So tell me about your business. Tell me what's special about you. What do you do in your business that makes you so wonderful? What's your secret sauce? Not finance and payroll and HR and having an intranet. No. What's special about your business? And then what are the risks that your business faces? And not just the IT, security and technology risks. What are your business risks? If someone walks off with your secret sauce, if the goose that lays the golden eggs stops laying, what happens then? So risks, and then the imperatives. You're in business, you're in New Zealand, what else do you need to consider? The Crimes Act, the Privacy Act, various privacy codes if you're in health or other areas, your underlying contracts, PCI DSS if you're doing credit cards and payments, and certification if you've already signed up for 27001. So you come up with policy and it matches the business. So where does this policy come from? In an ideal world, where does it come from? What is the process for getting this policy out? Well, context and scope, some of the previous slide. Tell me about your key information assets. Systems, applications, services, people, intellectual property in their brains. Do you have a threat model? Can you point to the top 5 threat actors? What do you mean? Well, is it the Chinese mafia, the Russian mafia? Who is it? Is it Iran? Is it, name some. No, actually, it's fat fingers because our training's really complicated, and it's disgruntled former employees because we've laid loads off during COVID. Okay, great. Let's work with those top 5 or 6 threat models, threat actors, and let's consider those. Let's look at some potential vulnerabilities that might face your assets from those threats. Let's try and join it all together and come up with some reasonable risks with harm likelihood. And from those risks, let's choose what our treatment's going to be. Are we going to treat it? Does it reach the threshold? And then what are we going to do? And if the answer is we're going to control, mitigate, or reduce that risk, great. We're into controls, and the controls include policy. But if we chose not to treat it, or if we chose to transfer the risk, maybe it doesn't get policy. Maybe it just gets a quick once-over by legal or procurement. Or you just say, I'm happy to accept the risk. Okay, policies. Management, high level, it's policies. Thin as you like. Operationally, it's down to the people and the processes. If you write down the process, it becomes a procedure. Yay. And maybe there's some guidelines about how to run the procedure. If it's technical, technology products, technology partners, it's probably standards and baselines. So that's your management, operational, and technology control types sorted out. Is it people, process, or technology facing? So for example, you said, there's a huge risk that we get some malware. Oh, okay, malware, that sounds technical. So we'll have some technical controls. Let's load up the AI-driven, top-of-the-range AV that doesn't rely just on signatures and rules, and it's marvelous, and it's superb. It's got logging and everything. And let's make sure it checks the portable media that you load at the same time on your endpoint, and then let's look at the other avenues and routes as well, web and email. So that's it then, is it? That's, whoa, not so fast. Those antivirus risks aren't treated by technology alone. You need some user guidelines, acceptable use, from which you can have your education, training, and awareness. Backup and restore will be nice. Do users need to know how to do backup and restore? Well, they need to know who to call. And incident response is always good. Having a plan, step-by-step plan. And you probably need some people on the help desk who know which way is up and can talk troubled users through what happens next. So your policy isn't a policy, it's a family tree. Because at the top of the family tree you've got some policy, and then you flesh it out with some of these other things. What do you mean, Steve? This sounds crazy. You told us you were going to write us a policy. Well, it's a bit piecemeal, it's a bit patchwork. You start off with your high-level mandate. It's strategic. It's the sort of stuff the board won't object to. Grass, typically green. Sky, often blue. Water, wet 9 times out of 10. Who, what, why? Tell us about the risks. And it's mandatory. So your whole security policy might be half a dozen pages in 10-point font, reasonable margins. It could be as simple as that. Viruses are really terrible things, and we'll make sure we have the appropriate technical controls and can respond, and we'll make sure that the users recognize how to react and respond so they don't cause outbreaks and they know what to do if blah, blah, blah. No, you trim that right down as much as possible, and that's your policy on malware. And it's a couple of lines, and it cross-references the ISO standard if you're lucky. And your whole policy booklet, yeah. How often is it going to change? How often does the sky change colour or water not be wet? It's pretty much on the nod, and maybe the risks have moved around a bit and there's a focus on some areas more than others. Legal and contractual, third-party, cloud, offshore, onshore. Let's focus more on that and have some weasel words. Okay, let's do that. Standards. Technology driven, yeah, okay. Maybe it's what makes a good antivirus solution for us. Maybe it's your top 5 bullet points for that. Maybe it's part of your procurement exercise to get antivirus in and working. Maybe it's what it needs to be on every endpoint, every server, unless it's Linux, and we need antivirus at the gateways as well, and it probably looks like this, and it's probably measurable. You could probably say, 99% of PCs have got it. What about the other 50 PCs that don't? Okay. But it's mandatory, and it's a standard. And it could be a baseline standard for a build. This is what our servers look like. Or it could be a technology standard, a product standard. For the next 5 years, we'll be using this product in this space. The architectural building block said we need a database. We're on SQL Server, this version, until 2022. Next review point. Maybe that's our standards. Procedures. Could you get the intern to follow this procedure to achieve the correct end result? Does it have screenshots, flowcharts? Is it step by step? Is it detailed enough without being patronizing? And is it user-based that someone with a decent reading age could follow this and do the backup or help respond to the incident? If it's graphical, if it's checklist-based, flowchart-based, perfect. You could even get ISO sign-off against that by an auditor. Super. And then wrapping around all that, you've got some guidelines, advice and guidance. How do you comply with the mandatory rules? What do you need to know? What are the tidbits that you need? When something breaks, do you have a go-to list? How would you recognize that you've got malware on your computer? How would you recognize a piece of phishing email? What steps should you take next once you've recognized it? Guidelines. And some of these documents might have generic organization-wide reach. It just is. Your top-level policy just is. It could be we're really fed up with marketeering, creating new websites behind our back every 5 minutes and loading dodgy plugins, so we'll have a website policy. More of a contract between us and marketing and sales. If you're going to have a website, we'll do these things. We'll talk about pen testing, good-to-go testing, hosting, who's doing the development, languages, supportability, out-of-hours logging, monitoring. It isn't just that your cousin has knocked up a website on the weekend and it's gone live. It needs to be supported operationally, and it could kill our brand and reputation. Okay, so issue specific. Complicated issues, maybe it's more of a contract. And system specific, oh my goodness, if we take down this system, how do we bring it all back up in one piece? And what are the gotchas for the clocks changing? So if you've got a sort of system security plan, that could be really handy. And it all fits into the 4-level framework. Hold on, you say? Whose job is this? I am but one person. I am but the information security person. Well, it doesn't have to just be you. It doesn't have to be new work. Maybe you're sharing the love. Maybe lots of these snippets and fragments already exist. Whose job could it be? Well, if it's joiners, movers, leavers, and reference checks, it's not you, it's HR. If it's terms and conditions for a contract with right of audit and termination clauses, well, it's legal and procurement. They do this already, probably. Maybe. And risk management. It's always the security guy who talks about managing security. Where's the business risk? Why aren't we sharing this stuff? If you adopt the New Zealand protective security requirements, it isn't just the IT guy or the security guy who gets it. It's the HR team, the health and safety team, the physical security and premises team. And maybe you have a chief risk officer or not. Maybe someone's job in the organization is risk and they need to just join in. But if with protective security requirements, that free government resource, then there's some good learnings there about how to establish a risk program. And at least if you're the IT person who suggests using PSR, you get some friends thrown in for free. It isn't just you automatically. because it's health and safety, HR, and the rest. These days, what are your managed service providers doing, or your cloud service provider doing, and what are you doing with outsourced development? So, if it says in your risk treatment plan that you need architectural standards, you need coding guides, you need frameworks and diagrams, well, that's not you. You do security. And you go and talk to the chief architect and the developers and whoever's doing the contract for this stuff. And you build it in. So it's influence, negotiation, and back to behavior. But it's not all your job. You're allowed to co-opt other people and tell them it's their job as well. What does this policy 2.0 look like, Steve? What are the components of this policy 2.0 thing of which you speak? There's always some boilerplate. There's a structure, a logical, clear structure, and then where do the words come from? Okay, assuming you're going to take this route, you're doing policy 2.0, yeah, there's options for borrowing, stealing, or buying some words. If it's a framework you're building and it's a broad framework and you are certain that you want to create all of these pieces for yourself and manage them, then you will get lost unless you have a style guide or a policy standard. You can't really call it a policy, it's a policy standard. What are we saying is, should, must? Are we assuming the controls are already in place? Are we forward-looking? What sort of font and size are we using? What do the headings look like? You've got to be really careful because people will call out bits of your policy document set that clearly don't fit. So, that policy standard will help the bits fit. The boilerplate is the kind of thing that would have gone on the cover if you printed it out. Or maybe it's some boxing at the top of the document, and it impresses the auditors no end that you've said clearly what the policy is about, and it's for internal use only or commercial in confidence. You've got some dates on there that are still within living memory. You've worked out whose policy it is and who needs to sign it off, and all the rest of it. So, that's the document management piece. Maybe SharePoint will do some of that for you. Maybe. So once you've got past the boilerplate, same on every policy document. Oh, a structure. Maybe there's some key points that you need in your policy document. Maybe you have those in every document so people recognize, oh yeah, that's the penalties bit. Oh yeah, that's the overall success criteria. Oh, who's in scope? Which systems and users are in scope of this document? Maybe. And then, look, there's 3 options, each with 3 sub-options. Does it come ready done? Would you like fries with that? Does it come as individual bits to copy and paste? Or did you buy a toolkit? I've used all 9 of these options. Totally ready done, insert credit card, receive policy by return. InstantSecurityPolicy.com. If you're in a hole, remember this one. The auditors are coming round. You've got an hour. Put the sausage rolls on. Put in your money. Out comes a reasonably consistent, broadly NZ-ISM compliant policy set. And I've told you that for free. Actually, putting a credit card in might be $800 US. But out it all comes. A backup, restore passwords. Maybe you answer a few questions and help steer it, help tailor it and tune it to you. Company name, date, yeah, okay, that's easy. Do you like 6, 8 or longer character passwords? Do you like VPNs? Do you like backups daily, weekly or monthly? But, there it is. For the price of some sausage rolls, some fizzy pop, putting these policy documents onto SharePoint. Phew, welcome, auditors. Sit down. Sausage roll. Oh, no, that's next. But you can say that you've got a consistent policy set. It's up to date. You've socialized it with the team, and it's readily accessible to all of them on SharePoint. Job done. Oh no, that's more like policy 1.0, isn't it, actually? You probably need to pick a policy or two, you know, one a fortnight, one a month, and actually run with it and fine tune it and make sure it fits your organization. But at least you've got policy, and at least it broadly matches. Item 2, I've also used. I used a much earlier version. Charles Cresson Wood. Information security policy is made easy. And it's a 3-inch thick book with a CD, or the whole thing is electronically downloadable. And you pay your money, and there's some ready-done policies, and there's loads of policy fragments. Oh, I think I might want a policy about, yep, not a problem. Small, medium, or large, sir. Yep, choose these paragraphs, copy and paste. Yep, fine. It's ready done, and it's got bits to recycle. Well, the SANS Institute, I've used them. Some of their policies are okay. It's a good starting point. It's much easier to take a policy and throw rocks at it than to just start with a blank sheet. And their acceptable use policy has some merits to it. But there's 3 options. No effort, low effort. And the bottom one's free. Option 2. 3 more options that I've used. The Information Security Forum is a costly membership organization, and they publish every few years their good practice guide. This is gold dust, and that's why they charge about $1,000 for it. It's actionable, sensible, common sense, field tested with blue chips corporates. It's really good. If you ever get hold of a copy, keep it. The last paper copy I've got's 2006. Still good today. More accessible and free of charge, NZISM. Go to the GCSB website, and there is some really good policy with rationale. Choose the bit for unclassified, maybe weasel the words a little bit, but hey, if nothing else, you can recommend that as fallback technical guidance to everybody. Yeah, my policy might be really thin, but if you want more details on how to splice fibre between 2 bits of concrete, section 16, off you go, mate. And then you could buy a copy of the ISO standard. They charge by the page. There are some free toolkits around that will give you the nuts and bolts of it without you buying it. But there is a store. Option 3. You just say, look, give me a toolkit. 27001 is as good as it gets for certifiable information security. Get me a toolkit. Gary's Toolkit, SecAware, ISEC-T, local lad, Hastings. IT governance. Yeah, okay, they're a bit commercial. It's Calder & Watkins, they're good. Dejan Kosutic and Advisera. Great, he offers free training. Free training. Any of those will get you going. Snag is, we're at policy 3.0 now. Where did that come from? 10 minutes left and policy 3.0, blimey. What's changed? What's moved? Why are things different? Is it COVID? Was it me? Something I said? No, the world has moved on. Your desktop is no longer built by some guy down in the basement. Your servers, I'm still on. Your servers are no longer in that proximity sensor. It's in the policy. Your servers are no longer in that hot machine room by the toilets. They're out in the cloud somewhere. And your turnkey solution is hosted by the manufacturer for monthly subscriptions. Your remote access, you've got multi-factor authentication with your Google or your Microsoft. You don't need to fret about accessing the crown jewels behind your firewall. It's out in the cloud. You're providing your own phone, laptop, desk, office, Wi-Fi. What's this working from an office stuff and using the office phone? And we've switched now to demand side. It's people and requirements in the business voting with their credit cards. The technology operational side maybe isn't as visible or isn't as actionable, or it's menu driven and SLA driven and you're on the bronze plan, you don't get to choose that. Maybe that's it. Also, number 7. When I first started in the country, they did warn me. They did said, New Zealand has defined the words small and remote. Check the dictionary. And I didn't realise until recently, consulting in Auckland, there's a challenge here. If you're a large business in New Zealand, it means you've got 50 staff. Anyone here from a large business, 50 staff or more? Okay, you could use policy 2.0 quite happily. Anyone here from a company with less than 50 staff, fewer than 50? Yeah, okay. Policy 3.0 could be good for you. And anyone from a small company with 6 to 19 staff? Yes, it's really small. Yeah, perhaps security and AppSec day wasn't a thing for you. You're too busy making money. If you did the sums on this, you'd say, well, where's the other 80% gone? Steve, where's the other 500,000 businesses? 0 to 5 full-time employees. So, okay, the size of your IT team could be one man and his dog, and you use a managed service provider. The size of the audience for writing, updating, and consuming policy could be, it's you. We need to make our policies risk-based, reference, well-structured, visually attractive, and plain language. That is, it's fit for Generation X and Y. We need to make policy documents pull, not push, not broadcast, not shut up and take it, but it's, actually, I've got 5 minutes. Could I watch a short video about, oh, can you show me 3 stuff headlines about, and there you go, policy 3.0. Okay, so you have a high-level policy. You align it with your favorite framework, 27001 and 2 for me. You point to NZISM, tick. You've now got a policy mandate, you've got cover to go and do what you wanted. And then you build some little fragments, graphics, diagrams, memes, video clips, news articles, cartoons, whatever it is. It's not an aeroplane, it's a collection of rivets flying in formation. That's the fragments. That's the policy. But Steve, you're not all going to get the same policy. No, but you'll be getting top 5 bullet points. You'll be getting 3 stuff news articles. You'll be getting a short video clip. You'll be getting a story. You like cartoons? Print this one out. You like memes? Share this one with the family. That's what you need. Not, oh, must I open the bottom drawer again? But no, fragments that you want to visit. And yes, if you've got any standards and procedures, you can glam those up. You need your enabling technologies to make this work. You need the kids to help you, the grandchildren to help you to produce that content. You need the technology. Is it SharePoint? You want to upvote, like, share. And you need people behind the scenes to dive in and comment back. You need different styles of learning and personality to be considered. Are you a red, a blue, a yellow personality? And you need probably somebody, maybe it's a marketing intern, I don't know, someone to help you with the curation, somebody young and enthusiastic, not old and policy 1.0. Your starter kit for policy 3.0. Your short high-level policy. Mandate, set the dogs running, you're fine. Access control procedures, catches everyone out. Joiners, movers, leavers, and privileged access. So you probably need something, you need some flowcharts for that, some checklists. You need to set a timer and say every 3 months I'll go through it. Backup and restore. You definitely need to do that, even if it's only, I tick this box in AWS and my backups are kept for 7 days. Great, let's do that. Incident response, a plan, not a policy to have a plan. And then your user guidelines, is it answer a tiki tour, a distilled set, the nuggets of the most pertinent points that you can share with your new starter or your contractor or your intern on day 1. For the rest of the time, it's pick your own journey. I'm going to flick to page 17. Oh, look, here's how the story's unfolded. Yeah, pick your own journey. And keep coming back. Every morning over coffee, I look at a video about hacking, whatever it is. So that's where I'm going. If you're a big organization, 50 plus, and you've got a decent size IT and security team, and you've got architects on standby, great, let's go with policy 2.0. But if you're a New Zealand-sized business and there's a handful of you who really care about security and IT, let's go policy 3.0, because it's all about the behaviors. And they always say culture trumps strategy, security, whatever it is. It's all about building that culture of security. You can do that with your policy 3.0 starter set. So now, tell me I'm wrong, heckle me, change my mind. Say again? Which idiot wrote your policy? Say again?
Is there a policy against heckling? You're not getting very much of it.
No, there is no policy. I think heckling's encouraged. It's in the rules of conduct.
Steve, I wondered if you could go back to policy 2.0 in the flow chart with the drinking option. I didn't quite know.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Right, hang on a second. Can I go to the flowchart with the drinking options, please? Because Carrie hadn't quite managed to note them all down yet. Okay. Hey, look, the slides automatically come with the graphics acknowledged, so, you know, it depends how good your eyesight is, Carrie, okay? Any other questions, please? Oh, in the blue. Yeah. How do you curate your policy 3.0 fragments and stop them aging out? That has to be either part of the technology does it for you, or it's somebody's job. It's the intern, the marketing person, the enthusiastic security person, the security evangelist. But also you'll tell based on the likes and the upvotes and the comments. If the stuff you've put up isn't getting any likes and feedback and comment, perhaps those stuff stories are a bit passé now. 2015, oh yeah, or Team New Zealand being ripped off for millions of, oh, let's try something else. You should be able to look in and see how your share portfolio of stories is doing, how your investment's tracking. If you're not getting the people coming, why not? Is it your stories, or they didn't know it was there yet? It's not linked from the main intranet. That's what I'd say.
When turning up to engagement and you're looking at policy, what's your worst case scenario? Is it that you've turned up, they don't do the task, and that you come in and you can go again? Or is it that they've had a go and then patched it all together and it's got no cohesion, it's a shambles? What's your worst case scenario and how are you going to attack that?
As a consultant, what's your worst case scenario for policy? You turned up at a client site and it's a really horrible engagement. Yeah, those do happen. In some cases, we'd like you to patch in another piece of shambolic policy into our disorganized framework. You've got 3 days to come up with some weasel words, or we'd like you to write our acceptable use policy from a distance, never having seen us face to face or experienced our environment. Sadly, you still have to turn up and do it and smile, but yeah, not favourite at all. If you have any other questions, you can always email me, or you can look me up on LinkedIn.